Hello, everybody. Say hello, YouTube. Haha, hello, hi. This is me. You guys can all see that. Anyways, today, guys, we're going to be doing a wishlist tier list, or kind of what I think that the wishlist should be. You can, of course, change things as you like if you want waifus, husbandos, etc. But after I get my next set of pulls, because I haven't even locked the wishlist yet, we're going to basically talk about what, in my opinion, the best looking wishlist is. You can change certain things out depending on if you max out on imprint, etc. But generally speaking, the characters I'm going to put on the wishlist are pretty non-negotiable in a lot of senses, especially since the wishlist is not so much, oh, hey, can I build a team? These are the units I want to be building so I get more value on my team, or for my, more bang for my buck later on. So, without further ado, let's do our final 10 pulls, which was definitely not a mistake because I forgot to record the first 10 pull. And let's get into it. Here we go. Who do we get? I heard it was technically scripted to give a healer. I don't know if that means I'm going to get Ruan or Hewen.
What's wrong with a good?
Very good. We need Odies. Good.
Welcome to my shop. How can I help you?
All right, how could you say it's not scripted? By the way? You have to get not Ruan. You have to get Rowan or Odie. There's no way. I feel like I've always gotten. Oh, okay. And here's the section. Okay. Get away from me. Okay. So this is the section that we want to talk about. It is the hero wish list. So as you can see, they give you a couple of default characters that are okay. They're decent at first, but using the default one, though not insanely crippling, is not as good as it could be. So let's talk about what, in my opinion, is the best. So let me just switch through real quick. We will switch this out for... Okay, this one's kind of subjective. It's kind of whatever. Okay, this one and this one. Switch this out for Coco. Put in Zagranma. And then Damien's a piece of work. And we could leave Leica for now. These characters don't matter. Okay, so let's run it down one by one. So the first section that we have here is Light Bearers. And you might be curious, oh, is Cassidy good or is Atalanta good? Now, the ultimate truth is that, of course, if you aren't going to be using someone like Temesia to have some backline access in PvP, this character is kind of like an imprint gap kind of character. And what I mean by that is that she gets much stronger later on. However, early on, or if you're trying to progress, or if you're several levels below, a lot of times you'll see someone like Temesia just kind of get like slapped and she gets swatted away like a fly, which is very bad and not very helpful, especially if you're relying on someone like Lucius, or later on we'll talk about Thorin to kind of just tank out your teams. So in terms of actual value, I do like having Temesia here, but if you want to change her out for someone else, I would at most maybe change her out for Cassidy, because Cassidy, I believe, provides magic defense penetration. Is that what it is? Yes. Okay. So the reason why the magic penetration pen, or the magic defense reduction, rather, is really nice for Cassidy is because you can pair this with someone like Odie, and then you do more damage with Odie, who is primarily magic damage. And then furthermore, in terms of healers, there is pretty much no utility offensive support quite like Rowan, why can't I say his name right? Rowan, specifically because he's basically an ultimate energy battery. He gives you more casts. He heals you a little bit in the early game. However, I do want to mention that later on, Rowan is no longer, he doesn't really suffice in terms of being an actual energy generator. He ends up kind of just sitting there and, in terms of being a healer, he kind of just sits there, gives you an ultimate, and then he kind of just, he just gets swatted away if there isn't another healer. In terms of the A-tier hero wishlist, though, you could definitely change out who you want here. If you want, you don't necessarily have to take Corrin. You could replace Corrin for Marley, depending on if you want more attacks, or if you're struggling on certain content, similar to like the Snow Giant, the Snow Stomper. Marley is really good, specifically because she has a lot of hits, and of course she can knock your characters out of the snowball a little bit faster, which is very valuable. However, what Corrin does is that Corrin gives you a bit more protection, specifically for your backline. One of his skills, as you could see right here, reads off that Corrin jumps next to an ally, granting them a shield and dealing true damage to enemies. The shield is a lot bigger than you think it is, and is extremely helpful. And of course, in terms of our last slot, if you don't like Lucius, that sucks. Lucius is kind of the free first tank that you get, and he is very valuable because, again, the shield is pretty nice. It not only protects you a lot of the early game, he ends up being pretty decent if you ever have to run a 3-tank composition, but he does, in my opinion, kind of get scaled out or kind of drowned out a little bit later. Although, in terms of me using Lucius right now, it feels like the only thing that I would really want to replace him if I'm running a 3-tank composition is going to be the next section's worth of tanks, which is in the Maulers. Now, here's the thing about Maulers. This character that I have here right now, Shakir, is not the most insane tank or anything like that because he's like a rogue who is kind of like cosplaying a tank. Now, of course, the actual tank characters in this exact position are characters like Lamont or even Brutus. Now, they don't specifically, or I should say, Shakir and Brutus don't specifically read out as tanks. They read out as warrior and rogue. But the thing that makes them really nice is that a character like Shakir has like a lot of mobility. He kind of jumps around, which again kind of gives you like aggro, which you can kind of argue something like Igor or someone like Igor also provides. But Shakir is also really, really good, specifically for Dream Realm, because he has, let me read off. It's the, where is it? Yes, it is the, wait, where is it? Yes, okay, it's this skill. So not only does Shakir end up doing damage, but he also ends up reducing the target's vitality, which is kind of nice. But beyond all these, beyond all that, if you do end up wanting to run someone like Brutus instead of Shakir, I can definitely understand you not wanting to put Shakir on your Mauler section right here. Brutus, though, in my opinion, is kind of ridiculous because he is one of the lowest investment characters in the entire game while also giving you high value. The way that Brutus works is that, unless if I'm mistaken and you need imprints, the way that his ultimate works is that essentially he gets kind of low, but he's not able to actually die. Yes. There it is. Okay, sorry. There's like 100 skills for these characters. I just want to read it out. So Brutus is immune to the first fatal blow. And then he gives himself like a tiny little shield and he spins out, and which is, you know, very helpful. He does a little bit of damage, but also since he is immune to that first fatal blow and he kind of stalls out the composition a little bit, even if you don't have maximum copies of Brutus, he is very, very helpful. Now, beyond that, now we have to talk about someone like Smokey, who is just far and away the GOAT healer of this game. There is pretty much no one else that compares to Smokey and Mirky. The only comparable healer is maybe someone like Huan, but Huan has her own kind of uses, which is why it feels a little bit weird. And also Huan's build-up time to try and heal or to activate her heal is much worse. Whereas again, you have Smokey and Mirky, who not only provides healing, but they also increase the attack of allies, which is like it's basically Rowan. But Smokey and Mirky have a bit of a downside, which is the range in which you can actually apply this healing and the buffs, which is not actually that big of a deal if you're just pretty good at placing your characters or you have any kind of sense when it comes to placement. If you're curious about placement, by the way, I have another video, which maybe, I don't know, I'll include somewhere. Maybe I'll link in like the description if you're curious, or you can go back and find it. It's like one of the fatal mistakes videos that I made. But now in terms of A-star or A-level characters, we have Odie. Now, I do want to make one big PSA and disclaimer about Odie. Odie, up until he reaches like Mythic Plus, is not very good. Now, I know you guys are gonna get your little pitchforks and say, "Oh no, I love Odie." Odie does not actually have a real kit, or the reason why a lot of people will say that Odie is really good is because of his specific execute that he gains, that you read right here. When you reach Mythic Plus on him, it reads that Odie immediately defeats poison enemies when their health drops below a certain limit. And the thing is that up until that point, he poisons, but if there's any other characters around, any, you know, several packs of enemies or anything to that liking or of that extent, he's just gonna throw his poison specifically at the enemy. He's not going to execute, he's not gonna do anything like that, which is a big problem. So you're basically wasting your poison on like a random trash mob. If, again, any mob in the game comes up to him, he's kind of squishy as well. And so in terms of actual value, the reason why you want to put Odie on this Mauler list right now or on the wish list right now is so that you can get to the point where you can get him to the Mythic Plus later on in the game, which with how many pulls are being given right now is very likely, you know, that'll be the case probably within a month or so. Now, the other character that you probably see here And I apologize, I'm going to harp on the Mauler class, but the Mauler classes are extremely, extremely good. Coco is really, really helpful. Number one, because she's a support. But Coco also has damage reduction and also just gives you more stats. If I'm not mistaken as well, she also gives, I think it's haste. Yeah, she increased haste, while also, I think, being able to cleanse later on with either her exclusive equipment or something alongside her Mythic Plus. But long story short, a lot of people just at base will see Coco, will see the damage reduction, and instantly want to add her to your roster, because later on, or especially once you start progressing, the monsters just start one-shotting you. It's not even close. You're trying to push certain stages where you're fighting 10, 20 levels above you, or above or approaching mobs that are 10 or 20 levels above you, which is really, really difficult. And really the only way that you could survive is if you're running someone like Coco who can kind of mitigate your damage that you take. Furthermore, if you want to talk about Wilders, Wilders kind of share a similar, I guess, usage case when it comes to comparing them to the Maulers. Now, if I had to kind of categorize the characters in a sense, I would honestly say that something like the Graveborns and the Lightbearers are really good for something, you know, on occasion, or for most times in something like PvP, or for certain content that is not so much story progressing focused. Long story short, if you're trying to progress through the game, I wouldn't super recommend fixating on the Graveborns or the Lightbearers. Of course, you're going to get something like your early Rowan or your early Rowan. I don't know why I can't say his name, but an early Rowan and a Lucius are really nice. However, if you were to, let's say, instead of getting Lucius and Rowan, get something like Coco and Mirki, or Smokey and Mirki, you would feel infinitely better just because of how much healing comes out, how much stall you have, how many buffs in general that you have. It's a very good feeling. But if we move on to the Wilders, here we have a bit of a debate, because ultimately Wilders are really, really nice for a couple reasons. Number one, a character like Huan has insane amount of healing, though the downside to this is that she kind of takes a little bit longer to get healing out compared to someone like Rowan early on, or even Mirki or Smokey and Mirki. Now, if you don't want Huan, that's totally fine, but the character that you would likely replace them with is a little bit questionable, because Byron right here is a super good damage dealer. Not only does Byron do decent damage and also, you know, debuffs, he also has a revive later on in his kit. I believe it comes when he is Mythic Plus. Yeah, it's this Mythic Plus skill, or this exclusive equipment skill, which is of course really nice, because now you have like an extra life with your DPS. You get to do more damage. Something like the Snow Stomper that one-shots you no longer one-shots you. But there is the argument that if you want to also pull for or use Iron is super good, because Iron's whole idea behind his kit is that he has this ultimate that kind of wraps everyone together in AoEs. However, later on, Iron also is able to cast his ultimate at the very beginning of the fight, so that gives him basically 2 ultimates within the very early stages of the game or any encounter, which is super valuable. However, for me, if I end up getting Huan, I'll take it because I like the healing. Now, in terms of your additional slot, Grandma Donnie is one of the nicer tanks to get as well. The healing and kind of all the utility that Grandma Donnie gives is just absolutely ridiculous. Now, you can already read it. She like reduces the stats of the enemy. She recovers, she taunts. She's just a super big tank while also self-buffing herself. And if you are missing a more dedicated OP 5-star or 6 or S tier tank akin to a Thorin, Grandma Donnie is a great alternative just because of how much utility she provides, not only to herself but to the team. And then in terms of your A level souls, or your A level 4 stars, or whatever you want to call it, your A level characters that you can then compare it to, there is not that much debate as to who you want here. You can pretty much pick anyone that you want. The reason why I like Damien is specifically because Damien can kind of be put alongside someone like Igor in PvP, and it's really funny to see the RC car kind of fly around, and the enemy team will try to fight the Igor, but you know, the Damien is stunning them, but you can't kill the Damien because the Igor is hopping on gravestones. Kind of an end game sort of thing, but long story short, it doesn't really matter what you pick here. all that I would say is that in terms of value, because you already have access to someone like Leica early, I would highly recommend you commit to putting Leica onto your wish list as well, because she's an all-around super good DPS. She provides utility to the team. She debuffs and does damage to the enemy team as well. She might not actually debuff. I think she applies damage. Oh no, she does. Okay. In any case, she's like an all-around very good damage dealer. However, the main fault of this is that most people will end up crutching on their Cannaaaa, and if you're also trying to crutch on Leica or on the Leica, you being able to kind of have the faction bonus feels a little bit weird, because you also have Rowan, or like a lot of times you have Rowan and Lucius. So the trying to build like a faction bonus or trying to have max faction bonus is a little bit weird, but I still like her just because in case if there's a case where you don't end up wanting to use the Graveborn, or sometimes you don't want to end up using the Light Bearers, or even later down the road, which is where I'm at, where you need 2 teams, you are definitely going to want a Leica. Furthermore, alongside the the Wilders is the Graveborns, and Leica and the Cannaaaa kind of DPS slot are often kind of reserved just for them two. They're really good, not only like single target, but they're also good AoE damage dealers. Damage dealers in general are kind of, I guess, a little bit of a picky slot, because of course you're going to have most likely an affinity for picking someone like Cannaaaa, and Cannaaaa not only acts as a damage dealer, she also acts as a pseudo tank because of Mr. Carlisle. There's no arguments here. Cannaaaa is just hands down the best DPS in the game, and your alternatives to kind of get rid of her are not really that good. Igor is great for PvP, and again, if you want someone like Carolina, just use Cannaaaa. There's definitely value to these other characters, to be clear, but in terms of actual value, unless if you are like, you want to be waifu and pull for Carolina, or you want to play for husbandos and, irritate people with Igor, it's much more valuable just to have the Cannaaaa here. And Thorin, I don't think I have to explain this character. Thorin is just absolutely
hit like
ridiculous.
And subscribe and watch Canna over at twitch.tv/Cannaaaa, cause this man has solid takes.
Thank you. Anyways, Thorin is really good because Thorin has a second life mechanic, kind of similar to what Byron has. However, the tankiness of Thorin cannot be understated. He is super valuable. The later chain that he gives, the Aureus, or like the damage sharing effect that he gives, super valuable. And now in terms of the, I guess, the A-star or the A-level souls for Graveborn, it doesn't really matter who you pick here. In all honesty, I like Viperion because you're giving him kind of early, but I haven't really found a usage for Niru or even this Salazar guy. They're sometimes okay for assassinating, but if you were looking for that, most people would likely look for someone like, Temesia to kind of just run through the backline, or they would use someone like Burial, or I don't know, something that's Celestial related, a more whale character if you're going to do that. So in terms of actual value, arguably the Wilder and the Graveborn A-star or A-level, I don't know why I can't speak today, the A-level characters are the ones that are kind of just free for you to choose, but this is my hero wish list. These are the characters that I find to be the best when it comes to the general wishing pool. I am going to save this right now, actually. But then we can talk about this epic recruitment, which I think a lot of people are also kind of curious about. Now, let me be absolutely clear. They do allow you to put A-level characters on the list, but the reason why this is really well is because you only get 5 copies of them. And now, 5 copies of a character is kind of good in terms of value. Like, oh wow, you get 5 and I need, however many Odys. But that is such a whale kind of like mentality or like mindset that it is almost never worth it for you to actually do that until you are just completely stacked out on all the other S-level characters. However, in terms of the characters that I'd actually choose, this is again kind of similar to what you saw in the list that I had earlier. Having Smokey, having Cannaaaa, having Rowan. If you don't want Shakir, having Brutus in is also fine. But you would likely get rid of some things like the Wilder characters early on, just because, again, characters like Brutus or Shakir are really nice for certain Dream Realm bosses. Also really good for progressing through the AFK stages and the story. And Thorin, again, kind of the GOAT. Rowan, also the GOAT in terms of wanting to be a bit more offensive. But if you want to change out Rowan for someone like Huan, I understand. Just keep in mind that you kind of want to keep your faction bonuses kind of intact and kind of similar. Otherwise, if you aren't looking for something like a, you know, the level 131 boost or buff that Rowan gets, where he starts with an energy potion, then maybe consider removing Rowan for the Temesia. But anyways, guys, that was my wish list, kind of things and, you know, discussion about the wish list. Honestly, this game has been really cool, and you do get a lot of the characters, so don't feel too bad if you're missing certain characters. It just means you have to wait a little bit longer, but there's really no race unless if you're at the absolute top, and if you're at the absolute top, you've probably already bought out the entire store. Anyways, though, guys, that's going to be it for this video about the wish list. This is a really important part of the game. And of course, if you're missing out on a couple things, it's not that big a deal, but you should start kind of setting yourself up for success when it comes to who you're playing for. But yeah, thanks again, guys, for watching, though. Make sure to like, comment, turn the notification bell, and subscribe. Thank you again for all the support you guys have shown in the AFK Journey videos. I will see you on the next one.